the mind becomes more quiet, but also there's a return to simplicity because we are addicted to complexity. Really, really addicted to our mind and to a state of stress and productivity that we first need to recognize. And this recognition comes with stillness, and it also comes in nature. We can do fantastic transformative processes in a city if that's what's available to us. But if we truly want to do ourselves a favor, prolonged periods of stillness and also resonating with a community, maybe that's already one step ahead of you, you know? Who are those people that are living what you aspire to? Those people might live in community, in nature, and they're not as productive as you, you know? They're not as successful as you, but they seem quite happy, content.
Hey, what is good, Refi Nation? John here from Refi Podcast, dropping an episode with my good friend Moniek van Erven from Oyasin. I met Mo on my personal journey of inner regeneration, sitting with sacred medicine in nature, trying to realign my own sense of self with the great mission that I feel called to serve. Moniek is a very special character in that she herself is a master's of finance, a serial entrepreneur who has run projects in India, South Africa, Portugal, and in many other organizations around the world, has been a contributing leader towards creating a positive difference in the world. Along her journey, she took a deeper look inside the world within as a core part of the change that she was trying to make in the world around us, and started on a path of working with sacred medicine, and specifically working with leaders who were trying to create great change in the world and helping them reflect that same ambition inside their own experience of life, with their thoughts, their emotion, the relationship to their body and others. For me, I wanted to bring this conversation to the regenerative finance space as I personally witnessed significant stress and challenges as I was participating at Toucan Protocol and also at Refi DAO, and recognizing that if we want to regenerate the world around us, we have to regenerate the world within as well. I would also invite people to check out oyasin.co for any upcoming retreats that Mo is running. I'm personally going to be joining Mo in Tulum in March 4th to March 10th. She's running a freediving expedition sitting with sacred medicines in Mexico. And I am super curious to explore this theme of water, a core element in myself and a core element in the world around us as a key vector for transformation. If you're interested, definitely check out her website to learn more. Otherwise, hope you enjoy this episode. It really does have gravity and a level of curiosity towards the concept of regeneration, both inside and out. If you appreciate the content, would be very grateful for a 5-star review. Every review really does help. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Refi Podcast. John Ellison here from Refi DAO with my amazing new friend Moniek van Erven from a company called Oyasin that's doing deep work with leaders of the new earth that see this potential of a financial system where people and the planet can actually live together in harmony. Mo has a deep background in finance with a master's and has worked as an entrepreneur in some incredible environments all over the world. She's bringing with us some deep courage as she's taken a leap into being not only a leader, but a healer, taking on the work of inner regeneration as well as outer. And for me, as soon as I met Mo, I knew that there was a path here for many people all over the world looking to realize their fullest potential, to take a look at their story, their upbringing, their journey, their hardships, to bring that face into the eye, into the work that they're called to do with these incredibly powerful financial tools that we've been given. With artificial intelligence on the scene, our ability to create has been more compounded than ever before. And so it is our responsibility to wield this wisely for the good of all people, for the good of all life. And to do this now, because the science is very clear. The time is running out. So thank you so much, Mo, for coming down here to the studio in Lisbon. It's great to have you as well
so
with
much,
this.
John, for the invitation.
This cacao all the way from Guatemala,
Yes.
and your beautiful presence. Before we jump into your story and some of the kind of key insights that you've made along your journey, I'd love to just pause and guide listeners through a very quick 2-minute meditation. We do this with many people on the show. So wherever you are, whether you're driving a car, if you can pull over, or if you're washing up the dishes or doing a little exercise routine, just invite a quick moment of pause as we close our eyes and find center before we drop into the show.
Beautiful.
allowing yourself to find the presence of your breath. Wherever you are in the world, held by the same earth. Drawing you down to your chair or cushion, towards the roots in the soil from which all of life emerges. And the recognition that you are not alone. That as you breathe this breath, millions of others breathe with you. Dreaming of this new financial system where people can finally live together, the planet in harmony. Recognizing the challenges that we face, the gravity and severity of these crises, and breathing in a firm conviction that all of the tools are here. And all of the capital is ready to be deployed. We all have a unique role to play in this symphony of regeneration. Thanks. And welcome back, Mo.
Thank you, John.
Would love for you to share a bit of your story of who you are and where you've came from, how you've gone to this place for those who don't know you.
Yeah. Where would you like me to start?
Yeah, I think whatever feels most resonant, I think, whether your professional career or some insights in your childhood, whatever sparks.
So, I grew up in Holland with a mixed family, as in my mother has her roots in Indonesia and my father in Holland. And myself and my older sister, we both went to study economics. Both of our parents are doctors. So we grew up in a very not so spiritual environment, very scientific environment. And mental health, because my father has a background as a psychiatrist, neurologist. A lot of the topics were around mental health, about mental illness, from a Western lens, basically, from Western psychiatry. So I was always very interested in the mind, and in also a healthy mind. And when I was about 19 years old, I started to really contemplate the topic of nature versus nurture. So how are we born, and how does our environment shape us? And I started looking for answers, but I didn't have the environment, that we have now in 2023, with all of the spiritual literature available, and everyone is teaching and everyone is also receiving. So I started to read books, and I ended up and studied all the isms. And I actually resonated most with Buddhism, because it's a practice that's only between you and your mind, and also the idea that you can arrive at a state of complete stillness, of complete union and harmony, and that you can dissolve and in as one, with your environment. That really appealed to me, because I always had a very busy mind. And also like in our family, intellect was very much promoted,
Sure.
So we read a lot of books, and I became a very good student, and I was dedicating a lot of time in shaping my mind and becoming more knowledgeable. And at the same time, there was quite a big disconnect between the mind, and then the emotions and what the body was experiencing. So when I was 24, I graduated from my degree in finance, and I went to India to travel initially, and there I had my first awakening. So I didn't know how. I wasn't striving for anything. But I had a moment where after a morning yoga class, I was in Kerala looking down the cliffs. And I looked at the ocean, and there was like a prolonged period of absolute like emptiness. Just sort of looking and observing the waves, and time disappeared. So later on, a friend came to find me. She said, I've been looking for you for like 20 minutes. But in my mind, it was only 20 minutes, but there was a profound peace. And I was shocked because I didn't know how I got there, and I didn't know what it meant. But all I knew was that was the state of being that I wanted to have.
Yes.
So sometimes with a big awakening, immediately comes a deviation from the path, because now I started craving, no? So now I wanted this. So, and when you really actively want something or you crave something, often you become disassociated with it, no?
Yeah.
Because now that state of peace is actually replaced by the craving.
The wanting of it.
So, and even it was like an unconscious craving, because I didn't know how I got there, I didn't know what it meant. So I really started with reading more books, no, on meditation, going in India to the market, finding all these swamis, and then trying to practice. And
I'd love to pause in that moment just for a second here. I love this kind of 20 minutes of stillness where you entered in this different state of being.
Yeah.
And I can almost imagine this background of your life story up until that point.
Yeah.
You know, being a really high achieving student, going deep into economics and finance.
Yes.
You know, living in a city, a bustling, busy life.
Yeah.
You know, we're drawn into this story because our parents and our society tells us that this is what we need to be safe.
Exactly.
A stable job, a steady income, you know, a mortgage, a car, like that. These are the things that make us feel safe.
Yes.
And yet sometimes we find ourselves in nature.
Yes.
With nothing else but our breath.
Yes.
And we can have this incredible release and peace. And yet some part of our brain seems to gravitate towards this, you know, this feeling, whatever the dopamine or, you know, the neurotransmitters that we receive for this bliss. And we can almost find ourselves on a similar rabbit race towards that next experience. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm curious for all those other people out there, like how you sort of reconciled those two worlds, the world of your past, the Masters of Finance, with this newfound sense of peace. Yeah. And like, you know, are those things able to be integrated, or are they, you know, two systems working against each other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say it took a while, no? Because it's not something, so for me, when there's this awakening, it's only the start of many awakenings, no? Yeah. And on the path, then these awakenings might become bigger and the periods more prolonged, and at the same time some challenges come up, no? Because you let go of a whole lot of things. How much do you really
know this stuff?
Yes. So then also when you see the truth, no, start seeing the truth of things, you also see the untruth in your life. Yeah. So you get a sort of a magnifying glass for everything, which means also illusions are highlighted before they can be surrendered. No, so I would say for me the start was quite rocky like that, and to your point of uniting those worlds, no, the background, which was exactly the nature versus nurture question that I started to debate, because there was already a intuition, I think, of this path that I would follow. But the environment that I found myself in was not conducive to that. Yeah. So it took a long time for me to take off these different jackets and shackles that I had, you know, found myself in, or that I was that I happened to be in. So in India, I actually found a strong purpose, no? Because I started to work as a volunteer in a microcredit bank, and I realized that my financial background could actually do a lot of good, no, if I was channeling it the right way. And I always dreamt of helping people, and not in a sort of grandiose way, or like, but really like there was a deep empathy since I was very young about the inequality in the world. It might have to do with past lives, but there was such a seeing people suffer made me suffer a lot, And I took a strong resolve already at primary school to do something about it, no? And my idea was to build water wells because I saw people having no access to water in Africa. So in my child's mind, the best thing I could do was dig wells to help them with water. And instead I realized, maybe with a financial degree, I can help not only the water, but other, streams, financial water, so to say, to reach the right people. So that was for me a big relief that my education could lead to something that I could do good with that. And however, when I arrived there at the microcredit bank, I did some fantastic work in setting up a business incubator, working with the poorest of the poor. Without illiterate women who, for the first time in their lives, could sort of start a business with the help of those loans. And the repayment rate was incredible. It was like 97% with microfinance, just because their heart was attached to it. No, so for them, a business was a way out. And I remember I started my first company there, which was training those women to become independent entrepreneurs by way of becoming seamstresses and production managers in a factory that I started. So, and they would make fashion collections, combining the local sort of attire with Western fashion. So a whole bunch of people from Europe, designers, production managers, documentary makers, and we would set up and work together to train those women. So 30 terrified women, they couldn't write their names, so just put a cross. And they were literally like responsible for their kids and for their parents and like $50 cents a day. So I visited each of them at their house with a documentary maker, and I asked them, what is your dream? No? And all of them had a dream much bigger than themselves. They dreamt of their children, they were my age, the women like 24 at the time, and the children were 12, to be able to leave the village and have an education, have a different life than they had. And through this initiative, through this company, they gained so much confidence that initially I thought we were going there to do good. And then I realized, no, it's completely cyclical, and it's reciprocity in the way that I was so inspired by their ability to have a profession and gain so much in confidence and peace and purpose that they would be good, happy. And it made me reflect on the West, where we have everything that we need.
I know.
And we can still be so incredibly dissatisfied.
And unwell. Profoundly unwell.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is such a fascinating microcosm for what's going on in society now. Yeah. I see you having this pivotal insight around this quiet space within. Yeah. And yet looking at the tools you've been given through the privilege of education that you and I have both been honored to receive, and saying, hey, actually, you know what, this money stuff can be an incredibly vital force for life and for regeneration, not only just societal, but also environmental. Yeah. And I think for me, seeing, the true transformative power of capital flowing to the right sources and the ripple effect that this has really does demonstrate, I think the enormous, exponential opportunity for restructuring these systems to do so much more good than it currently is. And at the same time, I also had an experience going to India with this intention, like coming in to serve. Yeah. And little did I know how much I would receive and be transformed and would be open and broken to all of the shackles of the world which I was raised in. Yeah. And all of the lies about, what it actually means to be happy and what we need to be well. Yeah. And so, seeing a woman with, this baseline of prosperity that's been activated, receive so much from this and just want to give. I think for me, this represents a true opportunity for all of our global society to make this transition away from a kind of GDP-centric, profit-seeking, wealth-accumulating mindset, which we know is destroying the planet. We know it's destroying our youth, into something that really honors and recognizes nature and the core stewards of nature, who are often women. Yeah. I think this is really important to call out. Yeah. The work you're doing with women is by no accident. It's no coincidence here. Yeah. The eradication of women from positions of leadership has been a detrimental influence on the way we steward our families, our communities, and nature. Totally.
Yeah.
So just pulling in a kind of a thread there, I'd love to hear the continuation of the story, but I think there's some really powerful themes emerging, and yeah, I can't wait to hear. I know there's many escalating moments, so keep rolling. But yeah, what was the next kind of pinnacle milestone in your journey of reconciling these two worlds?
Yeah, so I would say that from that first company that I started in India, I started working as a social entrepreneur. And in different continents, I spent 7 years living in South Africa. And there I also did an initiative to basically promote arts by the way of handbags, to create a global walking gallery. And to create art, to promote art, but also poetry. So to basically have the whole of the creative scene together with the production scene, because that seemed super relevant for me at the time, arriving in South Africa and seeing the level of talent, but also the reputation that it had, and what it's known for danger and inequality, and not for all of the beauty that it's there, and the sharp vision of the people. So so my mission was always to somehow help those in the townships and those in the slums in India to advance their lives, and at the same time I became a mentor for entrepreneurs, and I also started a technology incubator for Black-owned businesses in South Africa. It was called One Giant Leap, and I would support people from the townships with their waste management businesses, but also in the city with large IT companies, and I would, advise more like management consultancy on the executive level. And I would see that slowly I was transforming into not business advice, but really supporting the human in their process. Because as an entrepreneur, your identity is so closely linked to the business. If not, it is the business.
Sure.
So
the culture emanates from it.
Completely. So I found myself naturally becoming a mentor for business leaders in the personal area.
Yeah.
And I also experienced after my my initiative in India, I decided to not sell it to a United Nations offer. A woman at United Nations wants to take it over. She wanted to make it really large, She said that we would use those 30 women more as a marketing front, but behind the scenes, the production would take place in the factory. And she would use the brand because we won some awards. And it was all like...
You won some awards
from the United Nations, the contribution towards the Millennium Development Goals at the time,
That's
Sustainable Development Goals.
You're so humble, I love it.
No, but it's like, it wasn't about the awards so much, but it was about people finally said, oh, this project in India is actually meaningful. Yeah. You need some external validation, apparently, when people start to take you serious. But for me, it was more like, I know what I was doing, Yeah. And I was always, even in the period of winning prizes, I was doing a meditation on the faces of all of the women to never forget what it is that I set out to do, And that wasn't building an empire of a business, that was helping those women who all had a name and who all had a dream. And there's no way that that's going to be a marketing front, because then I'm completely not living my mission. So instead, I gave all of the assets of the company to them. You literally
gave it away.
I gave it away, and they ran their own company under my brand up until this day. They became independent
so
in a cooperative.
Talk about an exit.
So an exit. Well, I guess in the financial world, it wouldn't be a very successful exit, but it was very successful for me, because it was my purpose to help them to empower themselves. And there's nothing better than them not being dependent on me as much as I love them. And we had an amazing time, For 3 years I did it, and then they were good to go. They got their own clients, They started to change the product. But so that was another very pivotal moment,
Totally.
There's all these kind of crossroads that we take, and then we decide to go a certain way. And it's not coincidence, but my journey has been quite colorful in many different continents. And at the same time, I've always chosen the way that for me is it's not about right or wrong, but it has the purity of my intention.
In your own heart, you're really deeply listening. I think this is such a powerful testimony. And this vision of success, which you laid down for yourself, is completely different. than what the incentive structures of the world today offer.
Completely.
And it requires enormous courage to stand in the face of dollar signs and prestige and influence and elite and say, actually, this is not what it's for. This is for these women and their families and their autonomy.
Yes.
And I love this part of your journey, and it seems like it's served you so well. And I really just invite so many other people who are building businesses looking at what does success look like to see this as a new model. Yes. Because I think as we're building DAOs and internet native organizations, it's all about community. Yeah. It's all about the people we're designed to serve. And yet with venture capital and large returns around the corner, we often forget who this is for.
Yes.
And we create incentive structures that actually don't serve the purpose for which this is designed.
Yes.
And if at the end of the day we can really stand in our dying days in the mirror and say, that's who it was for.
That's what it is.
Then that's success.
That's success, only not yet, I would say. Because that was a part of it where there's the living the purpose was, I would say, successful. The impact on the others was successful, but the impact on myself was, I was still burning myself out. Yeah.
So many founders do. It's this perpetual thing. Every 2 years, everyone's crashing.
Not anymore. So maybe I can share a little bit about that. But I would be so devoted, so passionate, obsessed, one might say, that this was it, So I had my partner, and he started to also help me in this, and my friends started to. It was this kind of, it was a force, a force for good, but also like sometimes, with so much responsibility, I was also pouring from an empty cup when I needed to regenerate myself.
You're extracting your own reserves that you need in order to do this. Yeah, totally.
And then, it's so beautiful to give, but also you must pour really from your full cup, because then it can be long-lasting, no? And this kind of over-giving, people with a certain mission in the world tend to do that. And I do feel it's so vital to experience it, to then find a little bit of the balance. So what that meant was like, yes, I was on track with the life purpose, yet I had to still figure my own, the healthy balance. I had to figure it out. So up until that moment, I was walking the entrepreneurial path, and I was walking the path of spirituality. But the spiritual path, as you know, it's such a solitary practice that I was really devoted to Buddhism, but it's not something you talk about. Why, So I had my own arrow in that direction, and I do feel it's very personal, your spiritual path, and it's between you and spirit. But there was also, deep down, there was the fear of uniting the two. Unite the path of the purpose with your spiritual journey, because only when you unite the two, it becomes really complete. Because then it's like living your purpose, contributing to serve, and to create things that are helpful to people and enable them to help themselves. And at the same time, you look after yourself and you become that what you can help others with. No? But that comes with, it comes with maturity, no? And it comes with, for me, a lot of trial and error also. So when I finally decided, like, hey, those paths are not separated, they are actually one.
To
integrate them. And this, I think this happened when, after a long journey on the spiritual path, and I did many silent retreats, and I still do, spending at least 10 days a year in silence.
Wow.
Often multiple times, and I also do sometimes 3 days or 5 days. Starting with Zen Buddhism, then I went onto the Vipassana path, and now I'm on the Daya path, which is the self-inquiry that you know very well because you met it in our retreats. And it's the heart opening, the spiritual heart meditation. And very, very beautiful. And I had these profound peak experiences and also profound shifts, in being, because on the journey, it's not about the peak experience that gives you that kind of bird's eye view and many insights. And then you go back to land on this earth, and then you integrate it, no? And then this is where the transformation happens. So I had all these kind of experiences, and I knew that I was preparing for medicine. But I always had this intuition that first I needed to make myself solid with the tools of spirituality before I would engage with the medicine.
Interesting.
And ayahuasca came very early in my field of vision because one of the women that I was working with, she was part of the Santo Daime and told me a lot about it. And I wasn't ready. But I was ready to do deep self-inquiry in silence in India and all these different places in the world. And obviously with psilocybin, I already had some really beautiful experiences. So then when ayahuasca came onto my path.
Just actually before we jump into that part of the story, I'd love to pause and get your thoughts on this one element. Because you described, these kind of two worlds where you're working as a management consultant, you're building a business incubator. I know you were also involved early in the blockchain space.
Yes.
This is quite like hard tech, often masculine driven spaces that, often hold liberal ideologies, but seem to have a reverent lack of tolerance for people who believe or are willing to experience things outside of that which can be touched and felt.
Yeah.
There's this hard scientific reductionist approach, which if I cannot, immediately observe it in the material world, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And yet, we know through the work in the book Awakened Brain and other sources that actually this is really limiting our potential for relationship and also decision making.
Yeah.
That, accessing spirituality, lights up parts of our brain that are very vital for our ability as leaders to not only perceive but also make decisions. And I'm curious how you found the tension in these spaces and what do you think is driving this? It feels to me like a fear of, the unknown and a fear of that which cannot be measured. Silicon Valley has been such a powerful, innovative force. I worked with startups in the Bay Area for a few years, and this culture really has created the most significant societal disruption that we've ever seen through technology and through a specific worldview. Like, what do you think it is that's limiting and creating this massive divide between these two systems? Like, what did you observe, and how did you reconcile this, seeming intolerance for that which cannot be observed?
Yeah, I actually got introduced to Bitcoin for the first time in 2011 because I was part of a social business incubator. And one of my colleagues offered to set up an account for me on Tor. And I said, no, thanks.
No, thanks.
Seems a bit dodgy.
Free money. Seems a bit dodgy. Looking back.
Looking back? Yeah. Okay. And then in 2017, I ended up being the head of investor relations for a blockchain advisory firm in Holland, which meant that I was liaising a lot with investors, but also with these amazing startups, no? And this was quite a wild ride. But I was coming in from a perspective of, helping what is currently existing, contributing. And soon I discovered, hey, but wait a minute, this new world and this new financial system has so much potential to be truly novel in a way where it's fair and where it's equal, and where true innovation is rewarded. And not as tricky as our current, financial system, monetary system. So I came with this idealist view, and what I saw was there was a lot of, firstly, white male, ruling it.
It is totally.
And I also found that the tech bros, were not so open to women. No, there was a lot of sexism that I experienced. There was a lot of even misogyny. It was not a very welcoming scene, and the color people were also not represented. And I started to get a little bit worried in the way that, if these guys that have such a focus on the system, but leaving out, the whole inclusive part, and also the human element, the emotional element, that can be leading to the same, if not a
even
more
worse.
skewed, even worse
outcomes, of course.
And also the emotional part, the human connection part, that was really missing. So I got motivated because I thought, okay, there's a role for women, to bring our wisdom, and to
it's
also
absolutely vital. It's necessary.
Vital.
Otherwise, we're going to make the same system with the same consequences,
completely.
But it's even more powerful. So it'll just extract more capital. Yeah.
Yeah. So what actually happened was that I was I was doing this job. I was learning a lot. It was very intellectual. I was really impressed with the innovation. But I was met with so much sexism at conferences, etc., that at some point I even started boxing to really become stronger. If I was facing like 5 investors that were, in their masculine in South Africa.
Yeah, you stand right up against them, I know.
Yes. And I at the same time, I also felt empowered, but I was feeling that my message of like inclusivity and the feminine was not, people were not ready for it yet. Yeah. So there's 2 ways of making change. Either you are amongst them and from that point of view trying to create that ripple effect, or maybe you create your own island, unite yourself with people with the same vision, and then reach out to them. And what actually happened is the bridge now, a lot of my clients that I now work with are coming from the crypto space, and they're discovering themselves that maybe they have neglected their emotions for a long time, their bodies, Maybe there's not so much of a connection yet with the other gender or the people, the minorities or nature even.
Yes, totally.
So that also, I think, first when a trend like that arrives, everyone is on the waves and with possibilities, and then it becomes clear, the mask drops. Hey, but what are we creating? And I really so people usually come to work with me because they are ready, It's not us saying, hey, you should. No, it's people waking up one day, I'm not in flow.
Something's not right.
Something is not right. And maybe I'm retired because I invested really well in my crypto, And especially if you're retired at 30, life can become, terrifying and also empty. Because then you need to look in the mirror and it's time to say, okay, but who am I and what is my purpose? If money is no longer a driver.
Yeah, what is this about?
An issue, but it's also no longer a motivation. Yeah. The carrot is gone, basically. So then I would say that I saw everything for what it was, went my own way, and then the bridge was somehow made. But because I also have very much worked and engaged with that world and applied my mind a lot, I understand it. So what I feel now is working with leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm one of them,
Yeah,
and I've taken a long time to shed those layers and all of the problems that entrepreneurs approach me with. I have also suffered from, I have burned out. I have prioritized, my company over all the other elements of my life. I have neglected my emotions, my body. I have lived with high amounts of stress and maybe become too focused on one area of your life at the expense of the rest. And I didn't spend enough time in nature,
Sure.
It's a lot of working or behind my screen. So I feel that everything that comes through self-experience, I've read all the books and the most experience, that like the knowledge that I have gathered is by self-experience and by connecting to the fire, which we might speak to later. But it's like transmission of knowledge when you open, with or without medicine. This can happen in meditation also. But all of the wisdom that we are looking for, I feel we can tap in,
Totally.
to this collective consciousness, and it comes down to you at the moment. And at a sort of quantity and in a way what you're ready for.
We're ready to receive,
So even when you read a book, you will only understand and receive what you're ready for. But now these people and all of the research that has been done were also humans. And they also have their own brain, and their own heart. And I feel especially as women, but definitely also the males can tap into that intuition, knowing beyond knowing, their psychic abilities. And the more I find we are connecting to our heart, and the more we open to also the wisdom that nature offers.
Yes.
Like studying nature and being a student, with a beginner's mindset, and just looking at what nature creates and how gives you most of the answers, Sitting in solitude.
And I think this is such an interesting, phenomena in terms of the societies that we have observed throughout history,
Yeah.
you know, everything in the modern time is extractive and unsustainable by nature. And yet throughout history, we have these indigenous communities that have managed to build themselves into nature as a, you know, symbiotic, coexisting part of nature that is not separate.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating the role that ayahuasca has played, you know, throughout the ages for these indigenous communities to really deeply understand what nature is inviting them.
Yes.
And, you know, I also, like you, had a lot of distance and reticence towards any form of, you know, psychedelics. There's a fear in our culture that comes with this because there's a lot of people that go too far with it. And I think there's this sense that, you know, there's wisdom on the other side, but we don't know where it will take us.
Yeah.
And yet it seems that we're in this point in history where we really do have to learn how to live in harmony with nature in this lifetime. Yeah. And there are communities living today in the Amazon and other, you know, biodiversity-rich places that are stewarding 87% of all biodiversity. Yeah. And it's a natural coexisting living system that is it's at threat, it's in danger. And so I think people who are looking to create that bridge and really understand what are the keys to creating a symbiotic society where people on the planet can live together in harmony is absolutely essential. And there seems to me a transition we have to make in our own bodies and our own hearts because we're living largely in this world of delusion. You know, you look at dolphins or sharks or whales or wolves or any other keystone species, like by their nature, they create biodiversity. Yes. They create life. Yeah. Whereas look at us. Yes. We're just extraction machines. Yes. Yeah, so I'd be curious to understand, how you see ayahuasca as a medicine, in particular, you know, the role that it's played in the Amazon. I know that you've sat with medicine there with indigenous communities, and what you think this this plant is inviting for leaders who are really looking to go deep into this new human story. Yeah. So thank you for bringing up this topic. Firstly, because I think the reciprocity is so important. So. I would speak about like the medicine in general, not particularly ayahuasca, because it also applies to the Huachumeros working with Huachuma, to the Maracamis working with peyote. So what I find incredibly inspiring and why I like to be in the South American continent is because some of the medicine people that I sat with there or walked with, they are born into it. Wow. And meaning that at birth they are identified of having it, so to say. So, for example, to speak about the Maracamis with peyote, the youngest Maracami that I sat with in ceremony was 5 years old. Wow. And she was the daughter of the Maracami couple. The Maracami is the sort of the peyote shaman, Western people would call it. And they're from the Huichol tribe. And so they are at a very young age sort of initiated onto this path. But from birth they were already sort of identified or recognized, kind of like the Dalai Lama, no? Okay. So maybe out of 10 children, 3 are destined to be that. And the way that often people in the West work with medicine is that it's almost like a job, you know? You go into ceremony and you pray, and then outside of ceremony, you do your thing until ceremony again. Yeah. Whereas the way that I got to learn is that there's a constant connection to spirit. Yeah. This is not a job. It is a way of being. So all of the knowledge that they receive comes directly from spirit and from the plant. So they, from a very young age, engage with the plant. With ayahuasca, it's very similar, no? Even children, pregnant women drink it, and then children, start drinking it at a very young age. And great. I mean, the younger you start, maybe the less you have to clear or heal. And that also means that it's a very natural way of being with the medicine. Yeah. The medicine carries the spirits, no, of the plant. And it's the spirit that we are guided by. So you can connect to the spirit with or without the medicine, right? Yeah. So, for example, I work with cacao. And I received my initiation in Guatemala. And one of the most phenomenal elements about that is that
a lot of the ceremonies we did in our initiation process was while drinking cacao, like we're doing now.
Yeah,
but
beautiful.
at the same time, a lot of it was just connecting, holding the cacao bean and connecting to the spirit and invocating the spirit of cacao. And that would have a similar effect because it's about that reverence for nature, reverence for spirit, and reverence for the plants, which is also why when we work in the West on these kind of psychedelics, as we call it now, and we work on sort of quick fixes that we can take in our lunch break, what we take away is that connection to nature. And in my experience, and you've been there as well, one huge part of our healing process and our transformation is unlocking this reverence and humility and respect for Pachamama, for nature. And this is the starting point of our journey. So you know that we start by offering, and we start by giving before we receive. And we also start by asking for permission, because the spirit wants to come or not. But if you invoke, the spirit with your most, humility and respect, then you get the protection of, all of the beings that are there. And so giving before receiving, not giving with the purpose to receive, but with the purpose to give and to pay your respect. That's the starting point, asking for permission. And from there, you're being guided by that. So you ask about, nature, and it's kind of, in my view, we can have access to nature, which includes the medicine. And we can journey with her. And in our journeys, animals can appear to guide us the way. Wisdom appears. We can dissolve into nothingness and just be one with everything. We can reach sort of periods of enlightenment. We can also visit our deepest wounds and our traumas, but in a way where we are now journeying together with spirit to revisit him, and we feel safe and held, and we also feel safe and held by the keepers of the medicine, you know. And so I feel that we are so privileged these days to have access to the indigenous and their way of being, of which medicine is a big part, but it's fully integrated in their lives and in their being. And their wisdom that they channel through the medicine is their wisdom, you know? So it's not separated. And they don't need to study it, because sitting in nature, living in nature makes you the student of life.
Yes, it makes you the student of life.
So, and especially like working with the indigenous that were born into it, it's a whole different level. Because I've also met Marakamis, they very rarely experience fear, for example. And I've asked them, like, are you never afraid? Or, when was the last time? And they're like, fear. Fear,
It sounds so outlandish, for somebody who's grown up with fear and anxiety and depression and doubt, and in a community and context where suicide is rampant and everyone's swiping through their phones. Like, I can really sympathize with the great divide in our society from indigenous land stewards who are raised with nature as an intricate part of life. Give first. Invite spirits in to help guide how you live together in community, versus somebody who's grown up thrown in front of a screen, set aside as their parents rush to work. It's always busy, never enough time, never enough attention. Like these are true, deep and stark polarities of our time. And I think for me, I found just this quiet whisper to let go of that, which is described in the default mode network of the brain, the kind of identity construct that we build, which is so laden with so many stories. And, as an entrepreneur, you carry so much of your burden. Everyone else's, everyone's on your payroll, everyone's on your balance sheet, everyone's on your cap table. Like, you're carrying all of this. And I think it's just so fascinating to be invited into nature, to let go of everything.
Yes.
And to, drop that story and to just become a part as, any living being in the forest.
Yeah.
And I think this is, where healing begins, is when we recognize actually our right place on earth. Yeah. That we're not just, something on top and outside of nature, but we are a part of it.
Yes.
And, I love that this medicine can enable people, regardless of their background or how much they're carrying with them, to experience this because of, the neurophysiology of these compounds.
Yes. And
I think for me, the inquiry and the question is, like, how do we build a bridge from, this hyper-rational, very empirically driven, often male-dominated financial society with the nurturing, loving, wholesome, water-flowing rivers of the earth. Like, what is working for you in that way? And who do you see coming across this bridge? And what's happening as people are, taking this path? Yeah.
So, I think the answer to the sort of the arising of the bridge for me.
One sec. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah, the answer for you.
Yeah, so the answer for me is that you need to meet people where they're at, firstly, right? So if you want to extend your hand to help people walk over the bridge that you represent, obviously you're going to go to the other side, You're going to go to their side, reach out your hand and guide them back, which means that when I work with my, group of leaders, entrepreneurs, executives, generally what they come to find often has to do with, some sort of transformation, but also maybe they have a scarcity mindset and they want to invite more of an abundant mindset. Some people come in and ask, will I be more productive, working with you? Will I get more done? Oh, maybe. So obviously when you enter the process, you have identified you're not happy, you're not in flow, but you don't know exactly what and how. So I feel it's very important to meet someone where they're at and to really get to know them. To get to know like body, mind and soul. And more than me getting to know them is them getting to know them. Yeah. So I go slowly into this process where I ask lots of questions and they share. And in preparation for any journey, they will reflect a lot on themselves. Yeah. I will also guide them if it's relevant back to maybe their childhood and do these regressions with them. And oftentimes trauma or pain that was buried underneath, which is oftentimes the driver of such success. No?
And oftentimes they're ventures themselves.
Yes.
So they're filling a void.
But it's also a beautiful manifestation where your wounds of the past become your blessings, no?
Yeah.
So yeah. I also see the very positive element in that, because those are the guys that really want to change the world, and ultimately they arrive at changing themselves. But that takes time, Yeah. It's like I did it also. Like I started with, I'm gonna, have the impact there, and then return to the impact within myself, which then enabled me to extend that invitation. So what I realized was I started out helping or providing value to the poorest of the poor. But what I realized that is those business leaders, they are obviously not poor in financial terms, but there's a lot of poverty too. Yeah. And if you look at the people in the townships and people in the slums, there's an incredible fear and anxiety because it's unsafe, and there's no, financial stability. There's no way out, and it becomes, you kind of feel trapped. And then I started to realize that the leaders that I work with, they feel identical. Wow. So they don't have these economic threats or physical threats, but a lot of threats in their heads. No, because now they have a lot, they might lose it. They have a lot and they want more, Yeah. And it also, there's a lot of people that I work with addictions that are kind of tolerated, if not promoted by society, no? So you become like addicted to acceleration, to expansion. You become addicted to all kinds of substances, but it's fun, no? You become addicted to exercise or healthy eating, and there's more and more control in your life, which makes you function well in what we call our society. But internally, you're not functioning well, right? So to return to your question is to help people firstly settle into themselves, to create a connection that is real, no? It's not like, oh, I'm here to help you, you know? I'm showing myself. You're allowed to show yourself, you know? So in business, you're not supposed to have friendships with your clients because that's not professional. And I find that truly the community that I work with and all of my clients, we become like family, you know? If you spend 14 hours in front of the fire and you've cried together in each other's arms, of course you go back to humanity. And what I've experienced in my life is helpful to people. And then, but it's only because I'm maybe started earlier, or maybe I have more of a devotion to this path, but we are all the same, no? All of our problems are the same. All of our joy is the same. All of our suffering is the same. So I feel that I have a deep understanding of what people suffer from, because I suffered from it. And I want to help people to not go that long route that I've taken, but maybe a quicker way, an easier way, and a very, very safe way to transform themselves. And I feel that for me, and I put it on my website, and it sounds so cheesy, but I work with the medicine of love.
It's the truth. It's the true medicine,
The true medicine. And what that means is like, you can go to a ceremony and have your one-night transformation. But if you don't have, you know, like the guidance of the shaman before and after, you might feel very left on your own, no? Because it takes time to build trust, and it also takes time to integrate. So when we feel truly safe in our environment, we can start to feel safe also within ourselves, and vice versa. So for me, the element of connection, of safety, of love, and also the unconditionality, hey, I'm not going anywhere, no? I'm staying, and we're in it for the long run. And many of the entrepreneurs that we work with, they haven't experienced that, you know, from their past. So that is already incredibly healing. And I see people in the preparation process before any retreat or anything already, you know, traumas surface, insights come to the point where people often say like, hey, I don't need to retreat anymore because I feel so good. You know, I guide people with healthy habits, with detox diets, but like properly over 2 or 3 weeks. So it's that kind of easing into it. And what that leads to is sensitivity at the time of arrival at the ceremony. So the entrepreneurial way can be maximizing pretty hardcore, no? A lot of the questions that I get is like, what is the maximum number of cups of aya that I can drink? Or what is the maximum amount of peyote that I can eat? And it's like, okay, so we have as much as you want, you know? And it's not about, in my experience, that kind of harshness, that kind of pushing yourself is exactly what got us into trouble. So to get out of it, my approach is gentleness, softness, kindness for yourself. And also, we are highly sensitive beings. And often the more we numb, the more we actually very sensitive. And especially for the masculine, we might have, you know, put a little bit of that, you know, that mask on, and
disconnection to
self.
Absolutely. And I think this has been a fascinating observation for me, you know, looking at kind of the high money priests of our financial system. You know, I ended up on the front lines of, you know, Climidal and Toucan and multi-billion-dollar trading volume over a short period of time, and witnessed a bunch of effectively, you know, young men or boys, you know, looking at a system that they designed sometimes unconsciously. And seeing the ramifications that this can have when we aren't really listening to ourselves. And we aren't really listening to our intuition. And I think there is, you know, a long, slow, steady path towards decoupling these biases and, you know, understanding better the mental models of regenerative economics. But there's also, for me, this deep calling to, like you said, there's this sense of urgency now around really taking in the most powerful tools that we can to do the work of regeneration within, alongside the most powerful tools to regenerate the world around us.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a lot of, kind of fear and reticency in my heart, but the way you describe the containers that you create in such a gentle and nurturing way, seems to me of the mother.
Yeah.
And yes, you describe Mother Nature, Mother Earth, these are the language we use, and we use this for a reason.
Yeah.
Like there's this part of our being that is both masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And there's a part of our society that's so heavily over-masculinized that we've destroyed, just about all that is left of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And I think there is a really strong residing invitation as temperatures are rising, as biodiversity continues to collapse, to really lean into that gentle, nurturing love of the mother.
Yes.
Both physically and metaphorically.
Yes.
And I think that's really what I appreciate about what you're doing is, it's almost bringing love to economics, love to finance as leaders who are creating these systems, coming into these spaces, having these experiences of being a part of a family, of being safe exactly as they are. Yeah. That yes, in one moment you can be a powerful leader in a boardroom, and in another moment you can just crumble and weep, and let it all go. Yeah. And I think in order for us to really solve these problems, we have to do the work within. Yes. Like it's impossible otherwise. Sure. And so I really appreciate that call to action that you provide. And I would be curious to leave people at the end with some specific invitations for those who are interested in coming to Portugal to do some work with you. But first wanted to ask you a little bit of an overarching question, because I recognize we're coming towards the end of our time together. With a master's in finance, having built social enterprises in India, having worked as a management consultant, investment advisor for blockchain, you've seen a lot of systems, a lot of different constructs, and yet also working deeply with nature, deeply with medicine, introspection. What advice do you have for people who are in the system today? Who are playing with the levers at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs. Yeah. What would you invite them to do in this particular time in history?
I would say, well, there's a couple of things, but the first and foremost thing is to create time. Because in ceremony and what I've observed with people, like true healing comes with a relaxed body, and not just relaxed, but relaxing every cell of your body. This can truly cure like diseases within yourself, because in a state of relaxation, there's also the opening of the mind. Yeah. And when we are trying to fit in spiritual experiences and peak experiences and awakenings into a time schedule, those things don't go together. So I would say create time and make time. Now, the journeys help us to prioritize. So what you find is when you start to walk the path, the mind becomes more quiet, but also there's a return to simplicity and true simplicity, because we are addicted to complexity, and we are really, really addicted to our mind and to a state of stress and productivity that we first need to recognize. And this recognition comes with stillness, And it also comes in nature. We can do fantastic transformative processes that are in a city, if that's what's available to us. But if we truly want to do ourselves a favor, prolonged periods of stillness, and also resonating with a community, maybe that's already one step ahead of you, Who are those people that are living what you aspire to? First, it comes with resistance, because those people might live in community, in nature, and they're not as productive as you, and they're not as successful as you, but they seem quite happy, content, And I would also say that the arts are incredibly important, as in, I personally live in a community, and we live in nature, and we make a lot of music. Music is kind of the common language. So we write our own music, we sort of co-create. We also are a lot in our bodies. We dance a lot, and we spend a lot of time in the water and in the ocean. Now, this is all not maybe groundbreaking,
Sure.
but it's about that consistency on a day-to-day basis, to not run from peak experience to stress to peak experience, but to make these quite strong life changes and commitment where you can really prioritize your time with yourself, with others, and with nature. So that's really key. And I would also say to so this okay, I'm gonna share it anyway because so for me, what the practice that I developed in Guatemala when I was living with this curandera and I received an initiation in cacao is to start every morning with prayer. Now, prayer, for me, prayer is a tool of connection, humility, and the ultimate manifestation. Because when you start your morning, every morning, with firstly expressing gratitude, not expressing it, but feeling it. No? Everything you're grateful for.
The cellular level.
And also, every morning start with giving. You know, even if it's a flower, even if it's, you know, lighting a candle, or maybe it's creating an entire altar. You know, so you give when you're not feeling well, you give when you're sick, you give when you're really happy, you give when you're blessed, you give when you're stressed, you give when you're calm. You just give. You don't make it dependent on what you have right now. You give out of gratitude. And you trust that you will catch up. If you wake up feeling not okay, or you're feeling stressed, you trust, no? And prayer has maybe a very religious connotation to people. And in my case, because it builds faith, it's this manifestation tool. So to take time in the morning to sing, to make your cup of cacao, to connect to spirit, and don't do it on the days that you feel like it. Do it every day, because in transformation, consistency is key. No? And if you can add music to it, breath work, movement, even if you have a short amount of time, if you have some nature elements, even if you're in a city apartment, invite some flowers, invite something that you can create. And that conversation with yourself is such an honest state of being. And it's very personal. It's between you and spirit, or you and
your higher
the higher
self,
and your higher self. And it doesn't matter what kind of identification you have, what kind of picture you have. There's no need to even explain it. But when you start praying, you know. Everyone knows, and you have to go and overcome a little bit of judgment. Perhaps maybe you are critical, and that's all fine. So when you start and you continue, you will really, really reap the benefits. So what that means for me is that whenever something might want to unfold, you, rather than pushing the entrepreneurial way and saying, this is my goal, this is my plan, and here I'm going. You are inviting. So you are asking, and this is maybe asking your intuition, show this to me at exactly the right time. So imagine you run your business like that. Imagine you're not gonna force, but you're gonna open to it. You take action at the right time. You're not gonna just sit back and relax, but you really look at what is wanting to unfold. And then you can enter this wave of flow. And it might take you not where your business plan is headed. It might take you another direction. And that requires a lot of faith, because then you stop maybe talking about what it is that you want, but you start to invite what you need at that moment. And how that looks like is different for everyone. And our mind often doesn't know, but our heart already knows it. So by surrendering all that control that we have on a daily basis, and we're opening to our intuition and to our own guidance, also meaning that if a door is closed, it's maybe gonna open later, or it might not open, and it's for a reason. And this is not blind faith. This is really, really empowering. And in that, the manifestation and everything you ask for in your prayer, whatever is meant to happen, happens. And this can have an insanely quick turnaround in my experience. And this is also how I guide Oyasin, no? So I asked the medicine, when does what need to happen?
Yeah.
Clients come more and more to me with requests for experiences. Not I offer this, but can we create this? Okay, so you can respond to what
sensing
people
and
need.
responding to what, and also to what nature needs.
To what nature needs.
I think this like transition from a cerebral cognitive intelligence into a heart-centered knowing, where our gut is, sensing the diverse landscape of biodiversity in our intestines.
Yes.
And reframing the human story as being stewards of nature, who are not here to dominate, but to sense and to listen and respond and to serve. And, seeing this transition of people leaving super high stress city life, deluded into the thought that accumulation of wealth and material resources will set them free. And actually they find it slavery. And looking to, cohabitate in nature with friends and smaller, simpler societal structures, villages, even towns, where we can be active contributors to a more beautiful world.
Yes.
And, we're not only measuring our carbon footprint, but all of the trees that we're just naturally propagating because we love nature so much.
Yes.
And, seeing a financial system that seems very dumb and dull and unaware to be fully alive and aware of all of its externalities, positive and negative.
Yes.
I think we're really witnessing an incredible transformation at this point in human history. And it's scary at times. It's hard. Change is often quite volatile. But what I feel like you've offered is a really powerful recipe and tone of self-knowing, to spend time in nature, to spend time alone, to listen deeply to what you actually need as a leader, as somebody who wants to create change in the world, and to have the bravery to act regardless of what everybody around you wants and thinks.
Yeah, and also about what can you contribute? What are you here to do? How are you meant to serve?
What is your unique gift? Yes.
Your unique gift in terms of, okay, you have your company, you have your employees, you have all the means and the skills. So how can you really give back? And when we start to serve, really do and act from this flow of our purpose on earth, it becomes firstly effortless, but also it becomes so clear, and all of the mind's chatter is kind of surrendering when you operate from flow.
Yes, it's key to peak performance, the key absolutely.
And truth, so it requires a lot of courage to be truthful with yourself. And when you sit in ceremonies with medicine, for example, with peyote, sometimes 14 hours. Maybe you will resist for 6. Maybe your mind can hold on for 8.
Yeah.
But at some point, the mind is bound to leave, if you allow yourself. And you can just spend an entire night speaking to the grandfather, but also speaking to yourself and speaking to your ancestors, and really going down to truth. And there's no illusions anymore there. And it's very liberating. It's very scary, but you know exactly what to do once you... So my job is to help you get there. Yeah. To help yourself get there.
And I think this is what Mother Nature is asking all of us as a species. The temperatures are rising. The fire is burning. This is heating up. This is a pressure cooker for change.
Yes.
And the systems of the old world will collapse.
Yes.
They're breaking. They're falling away.
Yeah.
And there will be so much that is holding on, clinging on to this old way of doing things. But ultimately, the flame of this change is too strong.
Yes.
You know, what is born out of this process is going to be the only thing that can actually survive here on this earth. You know, this is an incredible evolutionary paradigm to witness. And I think I love this idea of, medicine of nature being a microcosm of this invitation to really let go of the stories that aren't serving us anymore.
For sure.
You know, to face our traumas deep in the eye, not only as individuals, but also as a society.
Yeah.
You know, there's been so many wounds we've inflicted upon our brothers and sisters. And I think it really is time to look at, women in the eye as men and apologize profusely for all that has been transgressed upon them through generations.
For sure.
You know, for Arabs and Palestinians to look each other in the eye as brothers for once and to say, I see you, of the same family. Yeah. You know, and I feel like this story is being borne out all over the world because we know now we need one another to survive. Absolutely. We need an open heart that's connected, to a higher source of intelligence in our fellow brothers and sisters and in nature. And from this place, I think we can create, a more beautiful world than any of us knew was possible.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And Pachamama is like the Mother Earth is so incredibly clever that way, because she gave us the medicine to sit with, no? So as the humans have been destroying the world, she also gave all these beautiful medicines, and she has been sort of protecting these tribes that are keeping the wisdom of the medicine in, like, authentically, but more than authentic, naturally from birth.
Yeah.
And then she's now giving the Western people access to that, no? And the medicine is finding its way, but it comes from Mother Earth, and it's grown by Mother Earth. And these medicines are sacred because they are nature. And they're not man-made, but they are channeled by humans to travel all over the world to reach those humans. And right now there's this wave of consciousness going around, which is also probably initiated by Pachamama, and everyone is entering that wave. It wasn't there when I started my journey, but now you see, regardless of age, people of 18, people of 65, we are all waking up at the same time. And we're starting at where we are, no? Because this wave goes around and all you can do is enter it. And some people start from scratch and some are already more advanced. But there's an awakening that is sort of collective. And there's also, with that, the knowledge, the language, you know, the dreams that are collectively awakened now.
Yes.
And you can go to any investment banker, and he will probably have already practiced meditation. He might have sat in Vipassana.
It's the gateway, yo. If you start meditating, watch out.
Yes. And
Totally.
It's so beautiful. When I started with this dream in 2019, my business partner at the time told me, no, you want to get a group of leaders and CEOs together and have them to drink ayahuasca and serve mushrooms. And he said,
you're crazy.
You're mad. This will never happen.
Watch me.
This is the world, that we're in now.
Yeah.
And not only that, but teams, like I have company teams approaching me for their leadership retreats. And there's just the awakening that we can no longer separate our humanity from our work.
Totally.
It's one, and professionalism is a mask that we're carrying, but the humans beyond, we're all the same. So we also collaborate much better when we are coming from a point of humanity, and humility. And in that, beautiful concepts can be created, but not if we're trying to follow certain rules. No, we must be empowered and free and collaborate and meet each other from a place of transparency and trust. And that can happen when you walk the path, and when you drink medicine together, and when you meditate together, when you look each other in the eyes, and when you can say, truly, I see you.
I see you. And
we are the same,
And this, I feel, is the most powerful collaboration technology ever made.
Yes.
This love.
Yes.
That we see in each other's eyes, that we see in nature. We talk about blockchain and money itself as a coordination tool.
Yes.
But if we can really harness this deep knowing of how much we belong to one another, of how much we depend on one another, I think this has enormous potential. And I'm so excited to see who else shows up in your life along this path.
Yes.
To follow Heart Center and to become, a stronger leader. I feel like now's quite a good time. I know you obviously have this kind of daily practice of yours, and I love playing with the truth cards in our time together. Maybe we can, just as a sample, pull out a couple of cards, do a quick 1 minute each, and people who are interested in this method of self-inquiry can look them up online and get a deck for their home. Yeah,
I made these cards actually during a retreat as little notes on people's plates initially to facilitate deep conversations.
Amazing.
And then it grew into a product. So we have different decks. And so let's take a leap of faith and
see where it goes.
See where it goes. So
one for me, one for you.
I'll ask you this one.
Yeah.
John, if you had enough money to not have to work, how would you spend your days?
I would probably spend time with regenerative communities all over the world, sharing the story of this incredible movement as people wake up to their full purpose and really realize what it's like to live together in harmony. And not only share stories, but also to make music and art and to really share the beauty of this heart unfolding in all the diverse ways that people do. And I guess I'm a little bit on that path now, but maybe that's a calling into the future for the stories and the culture and the art of a new earth.
Podcast every day.
Exactly. In every language and every tongue. Let me get one for you. What's this peachy one on top? That looks like it's calling me. All right. 1 minute, sis. Here you go. Is there something that you've dreamt of doing for a long time? If so, what is it and what's been stopping you?
Well, most of the things that I have dreamt of, I have realized in my life because I'm on that path of following what is meant to happen. I would say one thing that's still like a big dream of mine is to combine freediving with the medicine journey, because the process of apnea, of freediving for me has been incredibly transformative.
Wow. Not at the same time. One after
Not
the other.
yet. No, I'm joking. No, so it's really a journey of letting go of fear and trusting your body.
Yo.
So you go down to, I go down not so deep. So 21 meters is my. No, it's for freediving. It's still quite shallow, but for me it's been like a meter of depth every time, and more than the depth, because it actually doesn't matter, is to go there with full relaxation, full trust in your body, and actually enjoying hanging down the line and knowing you will, even floating on your back, and knowing you have plenty of air to come up and to also resettle your body, because you can't do it if you're stressed. Then you can't equalize. So you have to be so relaxed. So you go down the line like super supple, and you come back up, and you really meet yourself. So you can have big emotional releases.
Amazing.
Sometimes you burst into laughter or tears. And because it's such a profound, literally profound journey, because you go to the depths and you deal with a lot of emotions, I now want to combine that as an introduction to the medicine journey.
Wow, such a metaphor.
Yeah, where you actually go and touch on your deepest emotional waters to then come to full trust within yourself and your body. It's only you, your body, and the water. And it's complete stillness underneath. So once you arrive to that state of full surrender, and then you go into medicine, and I've done it consecutively, not together like you say, you are actually building that state of complete openness that is so vital for the depth of your journey. So this is something, I guess the question, what's stopping me is that, nothing.
Nothing yet, let's go.
Let's
do it.
So I'll let
Awesome.
you know.
For those listening who resonate with you, Mo, as a person, as a leader, how can they get in touch? How can they get connected with the work that you're doing?
So, they can look at the website, firstly. They can reach out to you, and you can share my number. So I always have like very personal contact also via WhatsApp. We have a group on Telegram at Oyasin. The website is www.oyasin.co. Then we have our Instagram, Oyasin. We have our newsletter that you can sign up for. And I'm not spending that much time on promotion, because I'm spending my time on guiding people. But somehow people know, the right people always arrive. And what we offer is we do these transformation processes that includes a retreat in nature that you've been part of also, with preparation, integration, and a whole bunch of healing modalities together with the sacred plants. Very, very deep and also longer processes. And then we also do private retreats where people are just basically phoning me, and they say, "Hey Mo, I'm coming to Mexico for 8 days. Can we sit with these kind of medicine, and can you create something which is around a certain theme? Maybe the theme is connection within a couple, or it's basically being more truthful, or releasing, this kind of state of numbness or depression. The theme might be forgiveness, and then I get to know the clients, or I already know them, and I create these kind of experiences according to what they need. Yeah, it's extremely beautiful.
I can't wait to see who shows up, and it's been such a gift spending this hour with you, Mo. Thank you for
so much, John.
Your journey. Thank you for your courage, for making those hard turns at forks in the road, and for inspiring, leaders all over the world to do the truest work there is. I really feel that the work of the heart and regeneration within is exactly what we all are being invited to do in this time. And everything with these tools will flow naturally when we can align our heart with nature and with one another. And so, it's an honor to sit with you, and can't wait to see where this journey leads.
Yes, thank you so much, John. Thank you for also your openness in doing this work. Thank you for really showing yourself in the retreats and the ceremonies that we did, and really, being vulnerable and really going deep also. And thank you for doing this work and bridging, your group of Refi guys and leaders all over the world with the medicine path, and also taking this leap of faith. And thank you for being so open-minded, and also the honoring nature so much. It's music to my ears. I love it so much.
It's an honor, sister. First step in a long journey.
Yes.
Thank you. Peace be with you. Ciao. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I would be so incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps us reach more listeners, attract amazing guests, and ultimately get the story of regeneration out to a wider audience. It takes just a couple seconds and makes a massive difference. Thanks so much, and do let us know if there's any guests that you'd love to hear from. We'd be very grateful to hear from you. Thanks.